suddenly invaded India across the disputed border along the Himalayan mountains. The Chinese offensive had been in the making for many years, but despite rising stances of skirmishes and warning from senior generals of the Indian Army, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and his Defence Minister Sri V.K. Menon continued to nourish the illusion that China would never resort to full-scale war. Prime Minister Nehru believed that his investment in diplomacy and friendship was sufficient for the security of the nation, and defense preparedness was seriously neglected. The Prime Minister's mistake would later be described as a Himalayan blunder. The Chinese displayed their nefarious intentions as early as July 1958 when their troops occupied the Khunak fort in Ladakh. China Pictorial, a magazine started by Mao Zedong in 1950, published a map showing parts of northeast Uttar Pradesh and eastern Ladakh within approximate borders of China. On a parallel front, the massive Chinese repression in Tibet left the Dalai Lama with no option but to proclaim independence and seek refuge in India. On 31 March 1959, the Tibetan spiritual leader arrived in India with thousands of his followers. Still trying to appease China, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru refused to condemn China and claimed that giving the Dalai Lama political asylum was a reflection of India's ancient traditions. China, in contrast, viewed the sanctuary given to the Dalai Lama as a hostile act. On 21 October 1959, Chinese forces opened a fire at an Indian patrol near the Kunkha Pass, killing 10 Indian police personnel and entering eastern Ladakh. Until the autumn of 1959, Indian police personnel manned the 4,000-kilometer-long Indo-Tibet border. Chinese Premier Chou Enlai arrived in Delhi on 19 April 1960 for talks with Pandit Nehru. The two countries appointed officers teams to study the boundary issue, but the 600-page report submitted on February 1961 noted a long list of conflicting positions without offering any solutions. Chief of Army Staff General K.S. Thimaiya, who had briefly resigned in August 1959 over disagreements with Defence Minister Sri Krishna Menon, retreated that the Indian Army would be able to fight only a limited war with China because of neglect in defense preparedness. By the summer of 1961, China established posts in Chipchap Valley, Liangsu and Dambuguru and built roads connecting them with their base. In March and April 1962, India established a few ports on the Depsang Plain of Siachen and Daulat Beg Oldi, the strategic air force base in northern Ladakh. Chinese patrolling between Karakoram Pass and Kunkhala had resumed, and Indian posts in Chipchap and Galwan valleys were encircled. In May 1962, China refused India's proposal that both sides withdraw to the lands claimed by them. As China prepared for a full-scale war, the Indian government believed that such an escalation would never happen. On 21 July 1962, Chinese troops opened fire on an Indian patrol. On 8 September, Chinese troops descended onto India's Thangla Ridge in the eastern sector, and there was an exchange of fire between the two armies on 20 September. On 19 October 1962, the newly appointed Indian Corps Commander General B.M. Kaul ordered Indian forces to occupy Siang and south of Thangla Ridge. That same month, a crisis on the other side gripped the world's attention as it brought America and Soviet Union under to the brink of nuclear war. With all eyes transfixed on the Cuba, China invaded 20 October 1962. Moving down the western and eastern sectors with mortar and artillery, the Chinese attacked heavily outnumbered Indian troops, who were pushed back despite a display of heroic courage and sacrifice on battlefields like Salarat, Sangla and Chushul. Prime Minister Nehru tried to lift the nation's sagging morale by saying, "No self-respecting nation would tolerate such outrageous aggression. We can never submit or surrender to aggression that has not been our way." Across India, the clamor for accountability at the failure of India's political leadership turned into a storm. On 31 October 1962, Prime Minister Nehru accepted Defence Minister Menon's resignation and took personal charge of the defence portfolio. Indians rallied in support of their armed forces during the trauma. There was an unprecedented surge of emotions from Kashmir to Kanyakumari as citizens donated blood for the soldiers and money and gold for the nation's defense fund. On the night of 17 November 1962, Sala fell and on 19 November, Bomdila was taken.